And yeah, Chris is working for McKinsey, and if you are in London based, you probably know him because he's really an activist, organizing many meetups, many things around JavaScript. And I would just say, give a warm hand to Chris Norring.
Good morning, everybody. I'm actually very impressed. It's 9 o'clock. How many of you are actually at work at 9 o'clock as a developer? You're better than me. You're better than me. I usually have stand-ups around 10, and that's, you know, I kind of like it that way. So this talk is about being the best you. Let me give you some backstory why this title is. So, my name is Chris. I come from Sweden. I moved to London 2 years ago. And I can tell you this, 4 years ago, I used to be a 9-to-5 developer. To me, in my mind, being a 9-to-5 developer means that you show up at work every day and you do the absolute minimum, right? And after a while, you realize you want more and you should be more for your colleagues, for your clients, for everybody, right? But most of all, for you. Everything you do should be for you. So at that point in time, I decided I want to be better, and I need to find a way to cater to my own learning process. So what I did at that point was to start a meetup and just force myself to study. And then I realized that a lot of other people kind of showed up and said, yeah, I want to learn that too, whatever Webpack or Angular or React or whatever you're trying to teach. And I realized this is so much fun. I get to learn in the context of other people. And of course, you know, by pure accident, you become better at what you do just by talking about it, right? Happy accident. 4 years have passed. I've managed to be an international speaker. I'm obviously standing in front of you here today. I managed to move countries. I managed to publish a lot of books. So I'm trying to say, I'm 39 today, right? And I've started doing this at age 35. So I want to give you a message of hope today that says, it's never too late to change. It's never too late to be the best you. With that, I'm starting with the official slides. So this is me, a Google developer expert, Telerik developer expert, working for McKinsey, and yeah, this is my Twitter, if you've got any questions later. Let's talk about developers and the fact that we are in all shapes and sizes. I mean, you guys know of this image from the 80s, right? It's usually this white male, probably overweight, sitting in a basement. That's not true anymore. Most of us are very well trained, right? We go to the gym and we enjoy life. It's men, it's women, it's everybody, all shapes and sizes. And we need to understand that that's important. It's important because our clients is going to be all shapes and sizes, and those are the ones you build software for. Yes, there's going to be a lot of memes. I apologize beforehand. So some of us are parents, right? We all know this situation. You come home after a long day and, you know, your kids can't wait to see you and you end up sick in bed. It's important to realize that, yes, a lot of us is going to treat development as a 9-to-5 puzzle, right? It's going to be hard to get that thing working. We have a very demanding profession that's going to demand a lot of us, sometimes over the course of duty, right? We study for more probably than 8 hours a day. We do our jobs and then a few extra hours on top of that, just to keep up to, you know, par with our skill set. This needs some explanation. I'm also the conference organizer of a conference called NG Vikings. So this is people wearing cosplay, right? I mean, what other excuse do you want to actually wear a Viking hat without looking stupid? So yes, some people are Vikings. Maybe you know this guy. This is Pascal Precht, one of the known names within Angular space. Have you guys been to NG Vikings? No? All right. This needs some explanation as well. This is Kara Eriksson. She's on the Angular team. She's probably the fastest typer on a keyboard I have ever seen. I just get an imposter syndrome from seeing her type. Is this guy a developer? Well, this guy actually is. So this is Ward Bell. Have you guys heard of him? He's been in this business for 20, 25 years. He's actually on the Angular team helping them with the documentations. So if you're stuck, remember that there's a guy in a red suit trying to fix it. Let's talk about users. We build a lot of software. We wish the users weren't there, but they're actually there, and we need to care about that fact. It's very easy to just say, well, everything compiles, all the tests run, but I end up in a situation where someone uses it and they don't use our application the way that we intended. And we're kind of sad about that, right? All that hard work. I'm going to tell you a really fun story that was told to me. I'm not sure whether it's true or not, but it kind of says a lot about our users. So we had this person calling into the help desk saying, my computer don't work. Okay, tell me more. Yeah, well, there's no light, no nothing. Whatever I do, nothing happens. Okay, so tell me more about this. You know the blinking thing, under your desk, is it working? Do you see a light? That thing? No, they actually came and collected that last week. We need to realize that a lot of our users are not tech savvy, but we are, and we speak a fundamentally different language to them. This is a user too. They try to use your application to the best of their ability, but their background is such that they don't really understand where to begin. We need to educate them. It's painful being a user, but it's probably even more painful to be a developer. Another example of a user. Don't know if you can actually see this font, but what this person is saying, hello, tech support. Yeah, I've got a problem. Your program is telling me to get a pet snake. I think you know where I'm going, right? So the actual problem turned out to be Python required to run the script. I mean, if you're not in our business, you're not going to get it. For us, it's like, obvious, right? But this is about user empathy. We need to realize that there are a lot of users out there, they don't get it, right? And it's our job to educate them. And of course, this classic. Do you know where the word spam originated from? Any of you? Good. Exactly. Good. So Monty Python was the first one to coin this term, right? So spam is just ham, right, in a can. This came to mean junk email. So what I'm trying to say with this image is that a lot of the words that we use, people use them too, but not in the same context. So again, language is very important. So the punchline of this kind of mini chapter is that we need to learn who the user is and what languages they speak, and we need to actually have a lot of empathy for their situation. Because at the end of the day, we build software that they use. Our job is hard. We all know our job is hard, we all know how much effort it takes, and we all know the need for concentration, right? We start off our day, we have a very complicated problem, that thing goes into 6 or 7 steps, right? I mean, it's almost like a crime scene. We're trying to solve this problem in all these steps, and we almost feel like it's magic, right? And suddenly someone says, oh yeah, by the way, they tap us on our shoulder and everything comes crashing down. This is a problem I think a lot of you have faced. I've faced it countless of times. There are ways to mitigate this. There is a way for you to say, oh, excuse me, I just have to write down where I am, right? But a lot of the times this is very painful, and we as developers know it's going to take us probably 20, 30 minutes to get back to that point where we were. Enough interruptions in a day and nothing will get done. We all love that open landscape setting, right? This is perfect. So people can bug us all the time. And of course, we got code. We got spaghetti code. And we have the best of intentions. We have the best of intentions of trying to fix this code and actually make it better for the next person. I mean, we have this thing called Boy Scout rule, right? Leave the code base in a better condition than you found it. We see this spaghetti code, and we're thinking, there must be a better way. We want to organize this. But we don't realize that we sometimes underestimate the magnitude of the problem, and we end up trying to fix this, and it's just another set of spaghetti, right? You go from spaghetti to tagliatelle or whatever else. Bugs. Bugs are fun. Let's fix them, and you got 100 new bugs. Well, they're actually not that fun. They're mostly painful, but you know what I mean. And of course, we got the programmer's dilemma. The code doesn't work. We don't know why. The code works, and we still don't know why. We did the smallest change, right? Yeah, you know this. Most of you know this. I think this is the reason why we age prematurely. And we've all seen a code base like this. Some project manager saying, well, can you have a quick look at this? I'm sure it's nothing. Yeah? We just want to add a few features. You open that thing and a bat flies out of the monitor, right? But we're still professionals. We still need to deal with this code base somehow in a professional manner and at least communicate what the problem is and give them a proper time estimate and then probably have a very long and nice shower and never talk about it again, right? This is a mistake that's very easy to make when you're a beginner developer. You just want things done, right? You got this project manager, you want to impress, and you're working at a very high speed and you're thinking you're all badass, but you end up writing code that's not well thought out. Pace yourself. It's not a race, right? You've got a long career ahead of you that's probably 20 plus years long. So, I mean, that code base is going to come back to haunt you unless you change jobs every 6 months. You're going to have to fix your own mistakes. So make sure that whatever you enter is actually something that you want to go back to. Show of hands, how many of you have gone back to your code base 3 years later or more and thinking, yeah, it looks great? Yeah, I thought so. Usually we learn, right? We learn at a crazy pace and we realize that the mistakes of the past deserves to stay buried. And I don't think any of you is doing this, but this is trying to convey a message. Don't use global variables, right? I mean, again, don't take shortcuts. Make sure that you treat this as a craftsman. It's very important with all the code that we craft that it's well crafted because it's going to come back to haunt you. It's going to come back to bite you. You saw this? Pug or muffin? This is actual training data for AIs to learn to recognize dogs or muffins. I don't think we're being replaced yet. What do you think? I'm pretty sure I'm not going to end up eating a dog by mistake. Don't forget empathy. It's very, very hard to think that you're on top of the world, you're a ninja, you know everything, but you don't realize or you have forgotten the pain that you had in the beginning because you struggle a lot in the beginning, right? First 6 months, maybe first 2 years even, you struggle to stay afloat, to make your code compile, to make sure that those pesky unit tests actually pass. You've forgotten after a while. If you've been in the business 10, 15 years, you're like, well, this was always easy, right? So remember, every person you meet have a different story and a different reason for being in the situation they're in. So, and just be uncomfortable for a while, change tech stacks and realize again how painful it actually is. It's easy to go from Java and Maven and then you just venture into Python, right? And suddenly you're a beginner again. So remember empathy. We love our job. How many was on Google Maps on the day that this happened? March 10th. How many of you played Mario Kart? Now this is why I think engineering is one of the best jobs out there, because we get to play. We get to be kids again, right? We get to add our view of the world on top of everything. Yes, engineering is about constructing bridges, but it's also about having fun. Stickers. Who likes stickers? Who have their computer full of stickers? Quite a few. I'm actually proud that I never had to grow up. I just had to be a developer instead. Swag. This is what we call this, right? T-shirts, stickers, everything we can, have at a conference. The more swag, the better the conference. I wish I was kidding. And we like danger, right? We like to play with fire. I mean, sometimes we just release stuff into production and then we test it. Or, I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking for me. We have a very complicated relationship to programming, right? We feel like it's the worst thing in the world, and we start thinking about emigrating or being some profession that's not being a developer. We literally hate it on some days, and some days are like, we're badass, we're on top of the world, I actually made this compile, and then you got the next bug, and you're like, oh crap. Anyone does CSS? You know this pain, right? We start adding CSS and then we try to center some image and it's painful. Hopefully they pay us well. I mean, I told the guy that the fact that I know CSS means I have job security. Because the other people won't touch it and they have no clue how it works. It's black magic. We are in a better place today though with Flexbox and grids, so it used to be way more painful. This is not an attack on PHP per se. We all have this. We have different headaches because of different things. It could be frameworks, it could be tools. But the fact is, some days you just don't want to leave bed. It's a reality, right? But we still have to carry on because we are professionals. I mean, sometimes it's just too much, and yeah, we go on a very long vacation and we start, checking ads for other jobs, and then we realize, yeah, probably my job is the most flexible one there is. Be mindful of burnout. So, a few words on burnout is that someone told me this, and I kind of agree. You can't get burned out if you work for you. Whatever you're trying to do to advance yourself, you don't get burned out by that. You get burned out by the fact that you work very hard for other people that don't appreciate you. So remember, if you're going to put in those extra hours, make sure it benefits you mostly. If you're trying to build your name, you're trying to build an empire, I've never heard of a single person who says, yeah, I started my own company and I got burned out. I've never heard that. But what I have heard is people that says, yeah, people had a lot of requirements on me and I ended up being burned out. So remember, balance yourself. It's a long life. I think our humor is the best humor, or I just have a weird sense of humor. UDP jokes, right? Classic. Another one. It's not really a joke. I think it's very close to truth. Am I right? I mean, if you got an advanced enough bug that you really can't find, you just try to sell it off as a feature. That's the reality we live in, that, one doesn't know whether we kid or not. We don't really know whether Dilbert is the truth or not. Am I right? Who here thinks that Dilbert is the truth? Quite a few show of hands. Interesting. I actually was at a company once where it was truth, so I know it's true. This is another classic. I'm not going to bother you too much with jokes, but yeah, I'm a bit off. I think you get the punchline. And of course, sometimes we just use it as a defense mechanism because, sometimes our job is so painful that we need to laugh it through. If we were dealing with an email template or whatever it is. So, Imposter Syndrome, right? There was part of the title, so let's talk about what that thing actually is. Anyone, by the way, feel that they have the Imposter Syndrome? Yep. It gets worse the more titles you have, by the way. So if you don't like it, don't try to be extra. It's a very long academic explanation, but I'm going to take out the gist from this. So the gist of an imposter syndrome is that you don't feel that you deserve your success. And despite the fact that you're racking up one accolade after the next, you're printing books, you're doing conferences, even your boss maybe says you're great, your peer says you're great, still you feel like, well, I'm never going to be as great as Stephen Hawking or, some other person that's very accomplished in our field. I'm not sure whether this is a good part or not, but the bottom point here is that it actually affects us equally, men and women. So actually, equality has reached that part. Not sure whether it's a success or not. So It's very easy not to be nice to yourself when it comes to this, so give yourself a break. Yes, you can probably study to the point where you say, well, I'm not going to bother with this, thing. I'm actually going to be nice to myself. And that's the message I want to give you. As soon as you feel like you're not good enough, you need to tell yourself, yes, I'm good enough exactly the way I am. So I want to give you a few examples. Have you guys heard of a guy called Getify? So the guy has 20 years of experience, written 8 books, 300,000 hours of videos, watched, his videos, and he still struggles to get his code working. I think this is important to realize. One of the most prominent people in our field is struggling. And we've got a local celebrity, Todd Moto. Who knows Todd? Ultimate angler, right? I think the guy is doing so well, he's driving a Porsche right now. But he wrote this a few weeks ago, saying, I'm actually looking how to emigrate to Hawaii and become a farmer because I have trouble learning Webpack. And then Sean Larkin, the creator of Webpack, goes in and say, dude, don't be this way, just hit me up with a message and I'll help you. Funny fact, Sean Larkin is actually a chicken farmer as well. It's okay to have 2 careers. I used to have a developer who was actually a goat farmer as well. So think about that. If your job is too much, make sure you have something where you disconnect from tech. So how do we fix this? How do we fix the imposter syndrome? Well, you could just be nice to yourself and say, nope, I'm not going to have it. Or you could try and study. That works too. So there are 4 stages of competence. This sounds a bit harsh, but I mean, as with everything, you can choose whether you want to say, yeah, I want to follow this or not, right? I'm just saying what's out there. So there is this competence pyramid where it says you have different levels of awakenings when it comes to how good you are at a skill. So the different bases here is being an unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, and consciously competent, obviously. And the last stage, when you're unconsciously competent. I think the point is that we go through different stages in our knowledge where we go from, yeah, I don't really know what this is, and I don't think I need it, and it's probably crap, right? So the first stage is pretty much saying, let's take an example. Let's say that I don't know why I need containers. I don't know why I need Docker. It's probably stupid technology. I don't want to learn yet another acronym, right? So you're probably at the stage where you don't recognize that something is valuable, and you're kind of opposed to even learning it. I mean, we've all been there. This is just a human thing, right? We need to shy stuff away and say, it's too much. I'm already learning, tons of other frameworks and tools. I can learn this as well. But when you come to realize that, well, this thing might actually be important for me to learn, then you pass on to the next stage, when you're kind of conscious of the fact that you have a gap in your knowledge. So when you realize that you have this gap, you can actually start that terrible venture of doing a ton of mistakes. This is part of your learning process. It's okay if the code screams back at you that says, you don't know what you're doing. That's okay, because it's part of your learning. So next stage is obviously you understanding what you're doing to the fullest, right? You start having a grasp of this technology, and you start going, all right, I can actually probably write a Docker file. I still have to Google how I do things, and I can make it work, and I understand the problems I'm getting. And then we got the last stage, the ninja stage. You're just doing it, right? We probably have 1 or 2 of these skills. We just hammer out something that just works. We don't even need to check it because we're that good. That takes hours. It takes hours, days, and years to come to that level. And there are different ways, of course, to reach there. How many of you are actually born in the 90s? Quite a show of hands. How many of you have seen Friends? Okay, good. So you kind of get this reference. So this is Phoebe, right? One of the characters of Friends, where she says, I know guitar. This is called the bear claw. Well, she's talking about chords, right? So the point is here, when you talk to your colleagues, your peers, if you don't use the right terms, it's going to be a very long and painful conversation, and it's going to be very confused. So one good step to take is actually try to learn the acronyms of your business, because it makes communication a lot easier and faster, and less error-prone. This is a little thing that I kind of figured out, is that when you try to learn a new topic, there are tons of concepts in that topic that you can actually write down. As soon as someone says, this term and you don't get it, write it down and try to look it up. Because after a while, you're going to have a very long dictionary of very good terms in that problem space. This is scary, right? Asking other people to have a look at your code. This is about you being very naked towards other people, right? You're saying, well, I'm very proud of my work, but can you have a look at it? And sometimes you need to dare ask the person who's probably going to give you the harshest feedback, but you're going to learn from it. So if you're this brave to do this, this will help you grow as a person. I don't completely agree with this tweet, but it has a point. So this one is saying, if you read a ton of books, if you watch a ton of videos, you're only going to be half the person that you could possibly be, right? So this tweet says, do it for real, right? Because if you only study, you don't actually get proficient in something. As I'm saying here at the bottom, you can't be a theoretical carpenter, right? You can read all you want about hammers and nails, but if you don't actually do it, you don't become good at it. So how do I practice? Practice is a thing I think we could do more in the business. Obviously, we got our everyday job. There are different ways of doing this. Anyone using Code Wars here? Awesome. So you're probably regex ninjas, right? Maybe. You got Cyber Dojo. This is a very interesting little tool. You're able to actually run different katas. You're able to try out different frameworks and languages. OSS projects is a great way to learn. Play projects. We all have those, right? We try to do a new technology and we come to a certain point where, okay, I kind of grasp it. And of course, you got these regex trainers. How many here feel like they could write a regex? A correct one. Yeah, that's the thing with regex. Some of us say, yeah, that's of course, it should be a tool in our tool chain, whereas other people are going to say, it's a thing I'd look at once a month, tops. So how much? How much practice do we need to actually get to a point where we feel competent, where we feel like, I'm on top of the world, I know what I'm doing, I can deliver on time because of it? 15,000 hours. This is just about computer programming. Imagine doing this about a certain framework or a certain tool. I mean, 15,000 hours is 8 hours practice a day. That's 5.1 years. So imagine that you want to be a ninja at Webpack, and you need to spend 5 years trying to master that thing. In a lot of the cases, we just barely know what we're doing, right? We have working code. We don't want to touch that hot mess. It's okay, right? But certain core skills need to be actually grueling hours, a lot of hours per day to actually get to a decent level. We don't have to know everything, but we need to select a few core skills. This is a term I don't know whether I like this term or not. Have you heard this term, expert beginner? It kind of means that it's too easy to just get stuck at a certain point where you kind of repeat the knowledge you had 2 years in the business and you repeat that for 10 years. So this is just a caution that says, make sure that every year counts. Make sure that you have increasingly harder projects. Make sure that you kind of change things up, right? Because it's very, very easy to just learn how to build a CRUD app and then your knowledge is going to be stuck. So deepen your knowledge. Every time you practice something, learn something new. Because that's what it is, right? You kind of try to cover the whole problem space. So learn the edges of your problem domain. Learn when your chosen framework or tool shines, but also learn when it hurts. Because Ruby on Rails isn't perfect. ASP MVC isn't perfect. Python isn't perfect. Everything has limitations. Everything is trade-offs. And also try to see the parallel into other problem domains, because you can actually learn a lot from just switching languages or framework, because they have a different take on the way you solve a problem. Do you agree with this? Of course, you should be a lazy developer, right? You should be so lazy that everything should be automated. There should be a script for most things you do that is manual. If boring, repetitive things aren't automated, a manager gets hired. That's what this says. Think before you code. So why am I saying this? We love problems, right? We love to see like, I know exactly how to build this house. I know exactly how to do this and that. Whoever jumped into a problem as soon as you saw it? Yeah? And then you realized over time, like, wait, I should take a step back and actually think about this. When we come to this realization, we have actually matured a lot as a developer. We have come to a conclusion that sometimes no code is better than code. And sometimes it's about changing perspective. I mean, some of us heard about TDD a long while ago, and some people are saying, well, it's not practical, it doesn't really work in reality. But the important message that TDD is bringing us is the fact that we need to think about testing. A lot of us have been coding software professionally for a long time without ever thinking about a test. And then suddenly this guy, I think it was Kent Beck, saying like, well, if you write your tests first, and then you're like, what do you mean write your test first? I don't even know what I'm going to write, right? But the fact is he forced you to think about how I could possibly test my software. So it's not about actually writing the test. It's about thinking what are the edges of my software? When does it work? When doesn't it work? And what's an expected behavior? So sometimes it's about changing your mindset, right? And of course, the best code is no code. When there is no code, there are no bugs and there are no APIs to learn. The best refactors are deletions. Do you agree with this? Isn't it wonderful when you can go into your repo and just suddenly delete a lot of code and it still works? Communication. I've been talking about tech skills for a very long time, but the reality of our profession is that communication is probably the most important tech skill. Yeah, you heard me correctly. It's the most important tech skill. Coding is way simpler than people, am I right? People are hard to figure out. People are hard to actually talk to and convey messages to. Coding is a lot simpler. So communicating clearly and with precision is going to gain you a lot towards the stakeholders, but also towards your peers. So this is the one thing that you can actually work on and that you need to work on. It's very easy to spend 5-10 years being a master of your tools, being a master of your framework and your languages, but you forget about this. This is when you graduate to being a senior and above that. So how do we train for communication? Lightning talks, conference talks. I'm training right now. And writing. Writing can actually clear your thoughts, because sometimes you just make things work, right? But if you actually have to find out the real terms and how you define, how things actually work in writing, you end up doing a lot of studying that leads to you communicating more clearly. And code pairing. Code pairing is painful for a lot of people because they have to externalize their internal process. A lot of people are very uncomfortable doing this, but it actually makes you clear your thoughts. It doesn't work for everybody, but it's a way. Psychology. So all the fancy skills in the tech world can't save you. All the communication in the world can't save you, unless, of course, you're super good at communication. I mean, we can talk our way out of problems. The thing that will save you is the right mindset. So this is about how you become the best at what you do. It's all about your attitude. It's not about your born-in IQ, whatever it is. It's about you, right here and right now. So don't be this guy. Don't be the guy that says, I hear your solution, and here is 25 problems with your solution. The other guy goes, yeah, thank you. You helped so much. So don't point out the problems only, but point out the problems while thinking about the solution and actually convey the solution. So yes, I mean, this is about psychology, right? If you see a lot of problems to a solution, think about the problems, but also think about the solution, because you're going to be the hero if you say, I see these 3 problems with your solution, with your intended solution, but I also see a fix for that, right? You're going to be the best colleague ever if you say that. So it's a big difference in communication. You have to believe that you can learn anything. The only bars that you set up are the ones that you make for yourself, right? So the only limitations to your ability is the limitations that you impose upon yourself. You have to believe that you can solve any problem. So this is about being brave, right? A lot of code, a lot of frameworks out there are a hot mess, but you have to believe that you can push through. So only what you think and what you believe about your own ability matters. If someone says, you can't do it, this is too hard for you, don't listen, right? The only person you should listen to is your inner voice. That's the only voice that matters. So one of my current colleagues and one of the best developers I've ever met says, anyone can do what I do. And I'm like, nah, you're a ninja, Ruud. I mean, come on, you can solve anything. You're like MacGyver of development. But he says, no, anyone can do what I do. It's all about choices. Most people don't want to spend the time it takes to actually get to this level. It's very true. So he comes from a background where he couldn't even pass high school properly. He couldn't get into a single university. Now he's probably one of the best developers on the planet because he had a change of attitude. And greatness. This is important. It's easy for me to say that greatness is being a keynote speaker or a published author. Greatness is what you think it is. If you're happy going home at 5 to be with your kids, if that's greatness to you, then I'm not going to say anything different, because your voice is the only one that matters. So you are the main character in the story that is your life. You must not forget that. A lot of people will tell you, you should do this, you should do that, but you're in control. You only get one chance to live the life that you want. So remember to be you. And ultimately, you decide the limit of your greatness. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chris. And I'm really impressed. And just wanted to add, because I'm a observer of this industry for almost even more than 20 years. And I remember the time when everybody was thinking about engineering something linear. You can optimize it in a linear way. You can put more pressure and control on it if it's not working. And it is non-trivial. It is non-trivial what we are all doing. Yeah? And I really love this description. Thank you very much. Enjoy the morning of the conference, and let's meet later here for the next keynote. Thank you.